Chair. Thank you, Secretary and Chairman, for being with us today. I appreciate your efforts in this area. And Secretary Carter, I'd like to start with you because right now I am very confused. You had stated earlier, and then you affirmed to Senator Ayotte that we are directly arming the Kurds in consultation with the Iraqi government. Would you state that again, please, sir?
Yeah, although I want to, I mean, you're using the word directly, and she used the word directly, and I did too, but let me just be clear about that, which is that we do it in a way that doesn't delay the shipments and doesn't narrow down the shipments at all, but is by, through, and with the government of Iraq. We're sticking with that principle, not because we don't want to help the Kurds and we don't want to help them in a timely way, but because we also want to stick up for the principle of multi-sectarianism. So that is the reason, but we're insistent that it not lead to delays. And as I said, I spoke to Mr. Barzani when he was over here, and I make sure that he's getting the right kind of equipment, not just from us, but the Germans and all the others are arming him in a timely manner. And they are getting that equipment, and they're performing extremely well with it. Let me just see if the chair wants to add anything about the method of arming.
So we are arming the Kurds. It's not being delayed. I know that was stated earlier that there are no significant delays, because I do want to emphasize that, as you know, over the last several months, my colleagues, a number of my colleagues and I have been working on legislation to directly arm the Kurds in consultation with the Iraqi government. And I know that you and Secretary Kerry also had very strongly worded letters to the chairman of this committee emphasizing that we should not be directly arming the Kurds in consultation with the Iraqi government because there were no delays. And yet the president now has come out and said that we will be arming them in an expedited manner. Well, if there were no delays, I don't understand why now we need an additional, several hundred members of our armed services on the ground in Iraq, and that we're expediting the process. If there were no delays, we don't need to be expediting the process. So I just needed to clarify that because it was stated a number of times that we were directly arming the Kurds, which Secretary Kerry had said last year he doesn't have the authority, the president doesn't have the authority to do. I still believe we need to be directly arming them in consultation with the Iraqi government. Following the fall of Ramadi, General Dempsey, you stated that if the Kurds fail to take measures to be more inclusive with Sunnis, Kurds, or other groups, U.S. support for the central government could be curtailed. And, sir, considering the fall of the most western part of Iraq to ISIS, that didn't trigger a decision point on the part of the Iraqi government in its commitment to Iraq, or, I'm just not sure what else the Iraqi government needs to fail at before the administration changes its strategy and how we support our willing partners in Iraq. The Kurdish Peshmerga, they are willing partners, they are, and I think we need to do more for them. We cannot defeat ISIS in Iraq by continuing to beg, hope, and pray that the sectarian Iraqi government, which is still overshadowed, we've heard it a number of times by, previous Prime Minister Maliki and Iran. We don't think that they will vigorously defend the Iraqi people equally. I don't believe they will. But we've talked also about being more inclusive. That was mentioned again. More inclusive. I hear this time and time again. But what I would like a definition of what does more inclusive look like, and how do we measure more inclusive? Gentlemen, if you would address that, please.
I would begin by noting the words of Prime Minister Abadi when he was here. I think he used the word decentralized Iraq. And that is one in which there is a central government in Baghdad and an integral state of Iraq. But there is substantial opportunity for self-determination around the country, among Sunnis, among Shias, and among Kurds. And it seems to me that's a wise way of approaching what multi-sectarianism means. I think a government in Baghdad that allows the different parties there a degree of self-determination to maintain security within their own territory and to govern themselves, share in things like the oil wealth of the country and so forth. That is what he says he is for. And that's the way he described it when he was here in Washington to all of that. And that is, in my judgment, certainly better than the alternative, which is sectarian disintegration, which could still occur in Iraq. But I think we all looking into that abyss know what resides there. It's further violence for the citizens of Iraq and further opportunity for groups like ISIL that aren't preoccupied with the long-term welfare of the territories they occupy. They want to use them for further violence. So that is Prime Minister Abadi's definition, and I think we're trying to support him in his aspiration to make good on that definition.
Thank you, General. Anything to add there?
Just, militarily, what we'll be watching for in terms of the intentions of the government of Iraq and its control over groups that are not directly responsive to the Ministry of Defense is whether there's retribution, whether they allow, it was Tikrit I was speaking about, I think, Senator. As these families come back to Tikrit after it was recaptured, I think we are watching, and it's worth watching, on whether they are able to return to their homes or not. I think the same will be true once Ramadi is recaptured. And we'll probably be watching how the campaign in Fallujah unfolds to ensure that the popular mobilization forces propagate a campaign that's not characterized by retribution and dramatic collateral damage. Those are all things to watch carefully.
I think we have willing partners there. I think we need to assist those willing partners. One further comment, too, just very briefly, is you had stated you haven't seen a request list from the Kurds on the type of equipment and arms that they need. Is that correct?
No, I have seen such requests. We've honored such requests. We've shipped a lot of equipment, and I should once again repeat, it's not just the United States. There are a number of countries that are equipping the Kurds, and in some cases they prefer the equipment of other countries. For example, German anti-tank weapons, and that's absolutely fine with us, and the Germans are providing those.
That is one thing I know that President Barzani had also presented to us during his visit with the members of the Senate Armed Services Committee. I just wanted to make sure that we were clear on that and that they have provided a list of equipment.
They did. We discussed exactly the same list.
Okay, very good.
And I've discussed it with others who are, for example, the German defense minister I mentioned when I was in Germany a couple of weeks ago, her commitment to do exactly the same, and they've done a great job of equipping the Kurds. And that's an example of a competent ground force that also governs within the territory that it controls. And that's really what we're looking for in that entire region. It's going to be hard to get, but it's what we're looking for.
Well, they are there, and I know they're willing. So thank you, gentlemen, very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Kaine.